Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. The most hottest topic in real estate right now is Zillow. Matter of fact, it's making me choked up. Hold on, let me get a sip of tea. And I wasn't going to touch this topic and spit out a video until I did my thorough research, because everybody knows that I put out a video a couple weeks ago talking about Zillow and how they were trying to corner the real estate market. The second I uploaded that freaking video, Zillow announced they were pausing it, and now they have ended their iBuying program. But are they the fall guys for what's really happening to the housing market right now? I have a special guest. His name is Chuck, and I'm going to try to say his last name right. Sierk. Let's see if I did it right. Chuck Sierk is here today. He is from near the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yep. I'm down here in Southeast PA.
In Southeast PA. I needed somebody from up north. We've had so many California agents on, and I'm like, hey, Chuck, let's go on here and let's chew the fat about some Zillow. And so there was this article that came out that basically was saying exactly what I was thinking before it even hit the headlines. And he's going to pull this up right now. And I really truly believe that Zillow right now is the fall guy when it comes to this. It says the easiest thing to do is buy homes. Offerpad CEO sees a bright future for iBuying despite Zillow's high profile exit. And this is like, we can go down into the article in just a second, but this is what I'm saying. Zillow is the fall guy for something that, yes, their business practice might have not been necessarily the best. They overpaid for houses. They were unable to unload them when they needed to. They didn't get them fixed up in time, and these houses sat on the market. Let's just say, if all these articles have been saying it's only 7,000 homes, 7,000 homes, that is not even going to put a dent in the housing market. Secondly, of all, about those 7,000 homes, they're not even going to be in the hands of consumers, which were the most affordable houses that were on the market to begin with. They're going straight back to other investment firms. Like I always said, Zillow is the fall guy. That what they have more than anything is the information to give to all these other private equity firms so they can fix up those houses and turn them into either rental units or flip them themselves. And now they're going to take a loss. It's, I don't know, Chuck, what is your opinion about this whole nonsense with Zillow and all the headlines and what people have been saying?
Well, I can't necessarily say this as fact, but I saw, I've got a number of friends, Facebook friends that are also agents, and somebody on their Facebook stories literally showed a screenshot of a tweet. This guy says, "I sold my house to Zillow for $550,000. A month later, they called me back and offered to sell it back to me for $350,000, and I said yes." And I don't know how real that is, but a $200,000, I mean, basically you trade it, you send it away, and then it comes back to you, and you've got in your $200,000, gross, richer. I don't know. I just think that Zillow had really, they didn't have a strong plan. I mean, some of the articles I've read is, well, we figured we'd hired a bunch of smart kids that were looking at data, and they said that these are the areas we should go into, and we should buy these houses for this much, and nothing beats feet on the street. And that's what they didn't have. And so there's a lot of speculation around exactly what Zillow has done. But I think we as agents all knew that it was a losing proposition, and it shows in the financial data that they have. They weren't making money with that process. So, and I've been buying and selling houses, I call it residential redevelopment. A lot of other people call it flipping houses, but we made sure that they were done right. And it can be a very tricky game if you get into something and you miss some of the repairs, and they weren't doing a whole lot of due diligence and a lot of inspection on these houses, but they also weren't doing a lot of repairs. They just basically slapped them up with a new coat of paint and didn't fix anything. And they would sit on the market.
But Chuck, let's think about this. And I've mentioned this before. Zillow, when it first started, said they were just a website that was giving out information so more people could find your listings. We
Mhm.
willingly gave that information to them. Customers, we were told that our profiles as real estate agents would be boosted if we had more of our customers, our own customers, fill out reviews, right? So
Right.
then our customers fill out those reviews, they're capturing their information, right? They have their email addresses, they have their at property addresses, they know where they moved from and they know where they're moving to. So that's all that information too. The number one asset that Zillow has always had was the information. They got in over their head with this. I think they slapped this whole idea together with doing this type of buying process thing. Open Door has done it better, with making sure the valuations were right. But I think that's because they hired the wrong people to do it,
Right.
and that it's evident. Happy belated birthday! I hope your birthday was a blast. Thank you, Boiled Nuts. It was my birthday. It was my birthday, and so for my birthday, I switched my background. That's what I did for everybody for my birthday. Thank you so much for the 1999 super chat. But yes, so I believe that Zillow tried something, it didn't work. This is not going to I mean, I know the number is like crazy. I think it's like $13.6 billion that they're supposed to lose or whatever, 7,000 homes. I still don't think this is going to make a hill of beans difference to this company. This is just a pencil mark on a line item on their spreadsheet that they're just going to take it off. Zillow
Yeah.
is
Five.
watching. My house is for sale. All right, VCG Construction. I hope you're going somewhere nice. Thank you for the 1999 super chat.
Yeah, I think in like 5 years from now, they're going to look back and say, "Hey, y'all remember when we used to buy houses? Remember how that really didn't work out?" And again, when they got as big as they did, riding on the backs of real estate agents and selling the data,
They're
they
still selling
basic
it.
right. Well, I think from the very beginning, their model was super smart because they gave people what they wanted. They basically opened the book on real estate to the general public, to
Mhm.
give them what they wanted. If you're selling a house or obviously if you're buying a house, what do you want? You want to see what houses are available, right? You want to be
Mhm.
able to shop from the comfort of your home, and that's really the huge innovation that Zillow provided to the market. And
That was
they gave them
Nillo.
the
That
data.
was funny. I like the new
Yeah,
name, Nillo.
Nillo. Because they
Because they're
made
nil and void right
nil.
now.
Yeah, they made nil on many of those flip outs for sure.
They did. They overpaid, but I still say, and I still maintain this, uh, um, that this is just one of those things where even though they dropped out now, that doesn't mean they're not gonna come back later. And they may come back later with a completely different program, but they are not out forever buying houses. There's just no way. If they do, so they might have like a branch of their own little company that opens up that's, sponsored by Zillow or whatever. But they're not out of the game. Offerpad has been making good money with this kind of stuff. There's lots of iBuying companies that have been doing really well. They just happen to structure theirs terribly. And then they got caught. They got caught. There was a real estate agent on TikTok that basically called them out on it without saying the company's name. Everybody in the comments knew exactly who they were. And I think this
Mhm.
was just damage control. Like, we already know we're screwing up. Like, we already know, if the public knows that it's us, and then we have this perception without even it being advertised. I think that's when they said, it's time to fold up our books because our press is bad and we can't get back from this. We can't come back from this. But they just sold those houses to other private equity firms. So people were like, this is a sign. They're dumping this is the conspiracy theory people. They're dumping all their properties because this is a sign the market's about to tank. What do you say about that, Chuck?
Well, there's something to be said, and we've talked about this. So, in EXP Realty, we have a group of agents that are all in the same family tree. We get together on a Zoom call every single week, and we talk about these types of things. And we're talking about what's happening in our respective markets. And one of the key points that we brought up is just as you said, they're really focused on the data, and they're able to, since they have so much data, they're able to look into particular trends for the market. And one of our thoughts and discussion topics was, okay, if Zillow's stopping to buy houses, the question really came up, what do they know that we don't see, because we don't have that type of data in the organization to really pull it all together. um, there's the inventory's been so low. And for them to dive in and really go for that, I think the whole idea of BlackRock really, buying up all the real estate in the country, and I mean that's also, they're buying up a very small component of the real
Who
estate
is
market.
Zillow's number one investor in the top 10? Who is Zillow's top 10 investor of their company?
Well, it has to be BlackRock.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Zillow sells that information to private equity firms, and they may seem like a small indication, but all of these companies are doing the same thing. Eventually, and I stand by this, and I will still wear my tinfoil hat to the day I die, that this is what private equity firms are trying to do, is turn as many Americans that are low income into renters instead of owners. And then eventually, slowly but surely, most of the country will be a rental society instead of a owning society. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
my tinfoil hat, you know.
well, I've got mine in the drawer behind me, so I figured I'd wear my Puma hat today for our chat. But they still have a lot more homes to buy if they're going to turn all Americans into renters, and for sure that's going to take a much longer time, and it's going to be a much bigger crisis than what COVID has ended up being for us as a country. So
everything's slow and insidious. Zillow just started off by putting up houses on a website for free. That's it. We didn't know what they were doing with the information. They knew what they were doing. They had a long game. And if you don't think they have a long game with selling and buying houses, the people are out of their minds. This is to me that, like, too many people were peeling back the curtain of their company, and they were like, you know what, before we go any further, why don't we just stop it? But they're still giving the information to all the other firms. They're not stopping. They're not. They're waiting. They're like salivating to collect as many houses as they can. They're waiting.
For sure.
They're like, how many investors have contacted you going, do you have any houses available? Because I have I have an exchange. I have to get rid of my money. I have to like dump this into properties. What do you have? I will buy anything.
Yeah, we see that almost on a daily basis. I mean, especially within our workplace groups, and we're seeing people referring, say, hey, I've got somebody that they need to buy something for, I think the biggest one I saw was 50 million. Is on a 1031 exchange, and they need, they've got 60 days. And it's like, okay, there's some serious players that are looking to do exchange properties and really, leverage that before who knows what, economic, bureaucracy is going to make the decision that 1031s are no longer available. And again, that's nothing for sure, but that's like, who knows at this point with all the decisions that we see being made, especially related to retirement accounts and those type of things. But so we have a local real estate investors group here in Southeast, South Central PA. And we've got over 4,000 members, and everybody, a lot of those are aspiring investors, people that are looking to get into the buy and hold game, or they're looking to fix and flip, or they've got grand ideas that wholesaling houses is going to make them rich. And so there's a lot of people that are like, who's got deals, and investors in our area are severely starved for houses right now. But for Zillow to go in and play that game, but offer the prices that they're offering, it never made sense to me.
Well, and like the other thing was like, that I thought was pretty funny, but they said that they use their own Zestimates to buy the houses, but that wasn't even necessarily the truth either, because I saw some Zestimates and they were still offering 30 to 40,000. And and this is the speculation. This is not been confirmed, but what the speculation was is that they had a sales group of people, and they were told, if you purchase X amount of houses in this sales month, you get a bonus. So they were just whatever it takes to win the offer so they could get their own sales bonus. Is that true? We don't know, but it does make better sense to why they were offering some of these things. Because I've known real estate agents that were like, I'm taking the offer from Zillow. Like, even with their fees and everything, I'm still making $50,000 more than I would in the open market. And it was like, that's alarming to me. Why were they offering so much more? Like, why was it so important to them to have that house at that amount of money? I was like, what is their long game? And it makes me think I think all of these long game for all of these people is just to get as many people renting as possible. Still think that. I will stand on that until I will keep posting that flag a million times over. We do have some questions coming in. Eddie's going to throw some up. TIGG says, question, 50,000 left on a USDA mortgage. Want to pay it off. Suggestion. Side note, I looked at the refinance, but cost outweighed the real savings. Caught between a rock and a hard place. What would you say, my friend Chuck?
I mean, there's so much more that there's so many more questions I would want to ask, based on, depending on what's the interest rate that you currently have. The key one for me is, if you have a real low interest rate, it's basically free money. I mean, especially at the way money's inflated right now and what we expect inflation to be. I mean, you already have that locked in, fixed. I mean, why pay off the 50,000 if unless you can almost make more money with that 50,000 someplace else than paying it off. That's the first financial analysis I'm going to do. So I've got a real small screen in front of me because it's on a phone, so I can't really read the rest of the question, but that's the first place that I go is what's the smartest play with your money? When people talk about paying off houses, same thing goes for student loans. If you have really low student loan rates, why pay them off sooner when your cash is better invested someplace else where you can get a much higher return?
I think when it comes to student loans, and I've talked to many younger people, when they see that big number hanging over their head, looming, it's so like, it feels like a number that will never shrink. So they're like, I have 50,000. I could take that down and it doesn't look like 150,000. It's only 100,000. And then I can take another 5,000 and then it's be less than 100,000. Like their brain is like, they just can't wrap around the fact that they owe that much money for the education. So they're willing to take that big chunk of money and throw it against a student loan. But someone's smart and savvy. That's why I always tell you the best thing for you to do is to speak to a financial advisor so they can tell you what exactly you should be doing with your money, because everybody's situation is going to be completely different. Your financial advisor may say the best thing for you to do is pay off that USDA loan because you have PMI that's ridiculous, and it's causing all these other issues. He may say don't pay it off because we want to take that $50,000 and reinvest it in this part. So speak to a financial advisor in your area. That's someone that you trust. If you feel like you're not getting the answers you want, speak to another one. Speak to somebody else and see what they have to say and compare those two. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah. I mean, interest income and having that return on whatever you invest in, and use those returns on that $50,000 investment to then pay it down even faster. I mean, the beauty of real estate is there's so many ways to skin this cat. I mean, you can really create opportunities out of what I would call thin air, to be able to generate cash flow and manage those type of payments. Don't get fixed on the number and, okay, I got it. It's not a race to zero in all cases. It's whose money are you using to be able to get to zero? That's right. The first thing I look at.
One of the smartest things that I ever heard of a friend of ours did was their first house. He was actually renting a little house above a Chinese food restaurant. It was like he was paying $300 and they were living with the rats, but he had bought his first house and he was renting it out. And he was like, well, all that money they kept collecting. Then he built up enough equity to buy another house. So he had those two houses. He had kept buying houses. He had 4 houses and they were still living above the Chinese food restaurant. But that's what got them their nice first house. And their nice first house was a manufactured home that was sitting up on a hill. And he was like, isn't this beautiful? She's like, this is not what I pictured our first house to be. But now they live in a beautiful home. And all those homes that he bought over the years and that paid the rent has paid for their kids' college, that has paid for their land, has paid for, so it started off with one house. And then he went from there. Christian Homestead. I hope I said your last name right. I'm sorry, Christian, if I said it wrong. I'm wondering why realtors who are supposed to know the market is simply skipping work and use Zillow as their data. What is that is what has happened to me selling my place. Nobody should, no real estate agent, not one that's no real estate agent that has their license should be using Zillow's data in order to market your home. Well, not market your home, because everybody puts it, like the MLS puts it on the MLS does it. They put it on their website. But all of our data is not the data that comes from Zillow. It's 100% from what is actually sold in our markets. The way we do cost market analysis has nothing to do with Zillow's data whatsoever. I don't ever even open up Zillow unless a client sends me this house and says, "Hey, have you seen this one?" What do you have to say about this, Chuck?
That literally just happened to me this weekend, and it's because the list agent put the wrong address in. It wasn't the same address as the MLS, and it showed up. I mean, I had to use the actual MLS ID and I got that from Zillow to put it in. And but I work out of the MLS. It's the best data that we can have because it's literally coming from the other agents and the sales and
the tax assessor's office. Everything's connected to the MLS.
And you see more remarks, in the MLS than that you won't see on Zillow. So, I mean, there's more information available to realtors on the MLS than there ever will be on Zillow. So that's a lazy agent.
Yeah, and one of the biggest complaints that Zillow that most real estate agents have against Zillow is they created this thing called a Zestimate, which a lot of people felt like that was an accurate estimate of what their house could possibly sell for. So they take your house that's right here, and then they draw a whole circle around it. And we'll say this is about a 5 mile or maybe even 10 mile radius. So everything that is sold in this radius, whether it had anything to do with your property or not, is averaged into your price. So that can be high, low, or completely off the radar. And it didn't matter because that was the number. So a lot of people that were selling their house would say, well, Zillow is telling me my house is only worth 200,000. There's houses in this neighborhood that sold for over 300,000. And I have a bigger yard and a swimming pool and everything else. I'm like, this data is what they say it is a Zestimate. It's a guess. They should call it a guesstimate of what your house is worth. They're just guessing. They're just using the algorithm to figure out your value. And so this is not accurate. And they even have said it. They actually even say, if you look at this estimate, it says this is just an estimate guess of algorithm guess of what your house is valued at. If you want a proper evaluation of your house, you should go ahead and pay for a, can't even think. We pay for what appraisal. Thank you. Holy cow. I was like an estimator, but that's not right. I was like, why can I appraisal? It's my new brain because I'm a year older now. I can't remember stuff. I got a year older now. I can't think on my own.
Yep. It's that I don't know if you have daylight savings time, but it must be that extra hours throwing you for a loop.
Yeah, that I think Phoenix, Arizona is the only place that doesn't have it. I think the rest of the country does.
I think there's some spots in Indiana, and if you
they're the smart ones.
Yeah. Yep. So
Joe says, question, there are Zillow owned listed on their site. Are these in addition to the 7,000 they have sold already? The 7,000 that they said that they literally can't make money on is what they said. There's just no way they can make money on. They have to dump those 7,000. I know that there's still some in Phoenix too. They're still being listed and sold by Zillow. And I think those are ones they've already decided to keep on the open market, but they're just bringing it back to a more realistic price from what I've seen. What have you seen in your area?
Well, I can say that, I mean, here in Amish country in southeastern Pennsylvania, we don't have a big Zillow buying presence here. So it's not something that I've really come across in a detailed perspective. So I don't know if that disqualifies me as a valid participant here in the Zillow discussion. But yeah, we're not seeing it.
But it's not just Zillow. It's Open Door. It's there's all these other firms that are buying houses, and they do sometimes put them under another name. So let's just say the bigger company, since we're talking about Zillow, is Zillow. But Zillow decides to do another company and they'll call it Sunshine Real Estate Company. So then they start listing their houses under Sunshine Real Estate Company, but it's really Zillow. That's what a lot of these other big private equity firms, because once they get in the newspaper and the news are like, let's go ahead and do an LLC under our company name and just switch the name so that way people don't give us bad press about it and know that we're purchasing it. But a lot of sellers will say, I got this, we got this purchase agreement. Who's this company that's buying it? I'm like, I don't know. Let me look into it, And then you're like, oh, well, that's because it's owned by this bigger company and they just came up with this LLC underneath it. So you don't know that it's actually Exxon or Shell or one of these other companies that are actually buying the house.
Right.
It's common practice.
Now there are other iBuyers out there. I mean, that's really what this whole umbrella has created, is this iBuyer phenomenon. There's other iBuyers. There's, call it the minor leagues, right? There's probably, AAA and AA and single A ball that they're playing, but some of the smaller guys they're not offering as much, but they've got other creative programs where, hey, we'll lend you the money to, you can flip your own house, but they do more detailed calculations, and working with some of those institutional buyers really can give people some flexibility. So, but the big ones like, Open Door and Offerpad and Zillow are really coming in, and they're just making a big land grab, if you will, for as many houses as they can.
Absolutely. Lawnmower, longtime subscriber to the channel, one of my favorite commentaologists. He likes to comment. He makes the most creative, fun comments in the comment section. If you guys aren't following what Lawnmower says in there, you're missing out because he's very funny. Kristina, to me, it looks like Zillow saw it wasn't going to make money when they thought they would. So they unloaded the property tax liabilities and also be able to write off $13 billion, 13 plus billion dollars. Okay, here's the other thing. When it comes to, let me just chew on this for a second. Taxes and property taxes and all this stuff. We all know that big companies, this is literally a drop in the bucket. They have gotten so much bad press, and they were literally in the limelight 24/7 for almost 3 weeks straight. I don't think they could handle the heat. And 3 months prior to this, the CEO of Redfin, and I posted this video, the CEO of Redfin said Offerpad, Zillow, iBuying programs were having the worst time getting construction people to come in and flip their houses. He said the reason being was because people don't want to work and they were out smoking dope and they can't get them to show up. That wasn't necessarily, of course, the case. That was probably he literally said that on television.
That's ridiculous.
He literally said that. And I'm like, how can you blame these people that don't want to work for the pittance that you want to pay them? They will work if you pay them, and like they don't have the materials to fix the stuff that you need to have done. We have a supply chain issue, but you're going to blame the workers that aren't showing up. You don't have the materials for them to do it. And that's where they got behind. They've been behind for months, and they just got caught. They got caught. Their name was in the headlines too much. And I think they were like, oh, poor us, feel bad for the big corporation. We're going to have to shut down. I don't buy it.
Well, I think there's also, depending on the scope of work and what they were saying, here's how much we'll pay you to do this work, right? Because they overbought, now they're needing to go cheap on the repairs, and they're not necessarily doing the repairs that need to be done. But this whole narrative of people wanting to stay at home, the federal government has already pulled back the funding. That program is over. They're not adding that additional, money to unemployment. I mean, the states have already turned that off. So I'm surprised when people continue to use that thought process as, oh, I can't get people to show up because they just want to sit home and collect unemployment. Well, the additional, now they're falling into the regular unemployment guidelines, and they have to qualify for that. And that's nothing that's super duper for them to be like, hey, look at me, I'm making extra money. It doesn't add up to me at all.
No. Well, I'm going to tell you a little well-known dirty secret. So a lot of people that got the PPE loans, there is a clause in there. You don't have to pay it back as long as you're actively looking for people to employ, right? So they're actively looking for people to employ, but they have to show that they can't find anybody to work for them, so they don't have to return the money that they got from the PPE loans. Is everybody doing this? No. But the help wanted signs came up in places where people applied and they can't get the job and they're overqualified. Well, that was the same company that ended up getting a PPE loan that necessarily may not want to pay it back. And if they don't get the employees, then all of a sudden, so I think there's a lot of things going on. I also think that people that did work at home found a different way to make money where they didn't have to be in the corporate machine. There's a lot of people that are like, you know what, I can sell my resin earrings on Etsy and I'm making $110,000 and I'm like sitting at home in my pajamas making these things. There's people that literally found out how to make their own business. And so they don't have to work for corporate America anymore. Some
Yep.
parents found out that, you know what, we can live on one income and I like staying home with my kids. So there's like stay-at-home dads now and stay-at-home moms that didn't think they were going to be able to do it and now they can. I just think there's a shift in the market, like the employment market, and there's a shift on how employers are willing to take what they're willing to take from an employer, and that is causing a rift. So yeah, you're right
Now,
though, 100% right.
but now there's quality general contractors that have literally work stacked up that they can't get to, and they do really good work. They can't get the subs either. So, I mean, on the other side of that coin, also having good skilled labor and having them ready and available to go to work. I mean, the best story for me was the guy that literally had one guy didn't show up for a job, no call, no show, and he lived 2 doors down from the job site. I mean, how dumb can you be, right? Not to show up. He said, oh, well, I can show up by 11. The guy said, don't bother. Don't bother showing up. I don't need you here.
But my husband used to work for a roofing company when all this stuff happened, and they had the worst time. If they would have the shingles, they wouldn't get the roofing nails. If they had the roofing nails, they couldn't get the tar paper. They had the work. I mean, they've got invoices sitting up to here, but they couldn't get the materials to be there. And those people were like, I can't be without work. I have to go find another job because I'm waiting to do the job to, hang the roofs. And I can't do this. I got kids to feed. So then they go find somebody else.
Especially if they're a 1099, if they're independent contractors and they're not on payroll. Yeah. Correct. I mean, they need to literally do the work and get paid for the value that they deliver.
Absolutely. And that happened a lot around here. So CC Moon, longtime subscribers, thinks, do you think the supply chain issues will make houses, food, cars, et cetera, more expensive in 2022? I feel like 22 will be harder on the wallets. I agree 100%. There isn't an analyst on the planet that says it's going to be, you know what? It's going to be so much cheaper heading into 2022. It's impossible. We still have supply chain issues that I think are going to go all the way into the third quarter of next year. I think they're going to get straightened out by the third quarter, but I think we're going to be seeing this into the third quarter. What is your opinion?
Well, I mean, if those boats just keep on going and they go into the Panama Canal, I mean, you can see those commercials in Texas. Our ports are open and we're ready to take those boats. You see that supply chain conversation. I mean, it's almost like, my goodness, you can change the channel and you can talk about what big issue are we dealing with, since the past 2 years, and supply chain, seeing all of that backed up. And I mean, in my professional career before being full-time in real estate, I mean, I was in the heavy duty trucking industry on the OEM side. So I have some background and insight into, truckers and being able to get people to get behind the wheel and drive. And that's also a big thing, but they have to deal with with a lot of the BS that is being, put in front of them. Are like, sure, we'll drive if you let us drive, and not have to have a shot in the arm. So you have all of this compounds itself to the supply chain, and with inflation, absolutely. And not being able to have it, supply and demand. If you're not allowing the supply to flow and you still have the demand, even for general, regular, everyday items, the prices have to go.
That has always happened. If you look at the history of the economy, start looking at the inflation through the 70s, what happened with gas prices and everything else. That's pretty interesting. There's a lot of parallels to that. I've been looking at that quite often. So it's interesting. M Sway, $5 super chat, says, in some states like Nevada, 1099s are allowed to draw unemployment. Also, I had an issue with my cleaning business. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was people, and there always in every situation, there's always bad apples in a bunch that try to manipulate the system, gain money, and so they don't have to work, blah, blah, blah. But the good
Sure.
majority of people, I'd like to think, and maybe I'm just being naive, I don't think the good majority of people are like wanting to stay home and sponge off the government. I just do not believe that. Maybe I'm being completely naive, but in my professional opinion, over the years, most people want to do better for themselves. They're not happy with what they have, and they always want to do better. So I don't
And I wouldn't want those people on a job site anyway, because
exactly.
already their mindset is not going to deliver the kind of work at the pace that I would expect, to deliver to a customer as a GC. I
Mhm.
mean, so they're not the people that we want to be getting the work done, especially on a house that we would be selling to a customer that then could have complaints down the road. I mean, at
Mhm.
least that's how our residential redevelopment business runs. We put a quality product out there, and that's what we strive for. Because I don't want those complaints. We don't put
Me either.
lipstick on a pig.
No. Nope. Eddie's gonna pull up another question here. Ta-da-da. I'm waiting for Eddie to throw up the questions here. Eddie said he's about to show something. Okay, question. I want to buy a home. I live in California. My budget is 150 to 200,000. I can't even get a realtor to talk to me. Is there any hope to finding a place? Okay, listen, Time Lady Jen. I want you to go to my website. Eddie, I have that tab open. You can go to my website, and it's even in the description of this video. Go to KristinaSmallhorn.com, fill out the form. I need a referral, and I will contact you, and we'll talk about what you need for a real estate agent. And I will connect you with a real estate agent that I know. I work for a company, and I have a real estate group with over 5,000 agents. I know many real estate agents throughout the country. I will find you somebody. Just fill out that form. I will look over it. Most likely, I'll either call you today or tomorrow, and we'll talk about your real estate needs, and I'll get you a real estate agent. So yeah,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
it.
to that point, I mean, in that same group, I know that depending on where in California,
Mhm.
it's definitely, I mean, I've seen comments where, agents are literally saying, in this particular area of California, how can you buy a house for, a budget in that range? So there can be some challenges, but I mean, Christine is absolutely the one that can get you connected to someone to help.
I know so many people. I talk to so many people, and Chuck knows my spirit is that I just want to help.
Mhm.
My real estate group, I help people, real estate agents, build up their YouTube channels. And do you know how much I charge? Not one red cent, not a penny, absolutely zero. I help people because that is my currency. Most people's currency is money. Mine happens to be I helped somebody and they said, "Thank you so much for your help." And then I'm like, "Oh." That's it. Then that's all. I just like doing that. So that's my deal. And so I'll be happy to help you. Questions. Any thoughts on future commercial RE? Do you think that EIDL loans incentives are going away next year and interest going from 4 to 6% after January? This might have an impact. Chuck, you want to handle this?
Well, definitely, if interest rates do go up, it's going to have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as the ties and the links to the EIDL, whether or not that's going away, I know that. I mean, if you walk into the banks, I've had a number of conversations through different transactions this year, and the bankers are like, man, we couldn't get enough people we could have helped so many more people, and I literally left this bank because they weren't willing to help people to understand. And now I'm at this bank, and we spent so much energy helping people be able to figure everything out and get them loans that other banks just really weren't willing to have the conversation to look at your specific situation and lay things out and say, here's what's available to you. So it's really, really important. And maybe that's specific to PPP. I'm not sure, because banks were more involved in the PPP process.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be having a relationship. First off, relationships are the right currency to have, right? For anything that you need. So if you have a relationship with a good banker, or use the hashtag Ask Facebook. Ask the people in your sphere of influence, who can I talk to that's knowledgeable about these specific things, to sit in your area, to sit down and talk through that. I don't have the right answer, but with interest rates going up, which we know that, I mean, the Fed has already said that interest rates will start to go up. I'm surprised that they haven't done it yet. I mean, it's almost
January.
Maybe it's going to be January 4th. There's a lot of things happening that day, so I've heard.
Yeah, January. It's January. It's going to happen in January. The thing is, though, even with I have a really good relationship with a local broker here, and he flat out told me, I know that you want to refinance with us, but honestly, you'll do better if you do this bank. Like, I know that you're my friend, and like we work together. Go get your refinance on your rental properties with this company. Do it with them instead. And I was like, thanks. If you have a good relationship and people that will be honest with you, then that's the best thing you can do as an investor. CC Moon says, anyone else looking around to check off their list, vehicle, clothes, electronics, in case I don't buy any new items for the next 1 to 2 years. The whole thing is that, like, we're all working from home. Do you really need clothes? Not really. Who cares? There's stains under your t-shirt. Nobody's going to see it on a Zoom call. Just wear a baggy sweatshirt. Nobody cares.
Well, I mean, for those of us that are going out, yes, it's definitely a concern, and it's been a plan to say, okay, we had a new vehicle. Well, we bought another used vehicle this year, right? So that was during the time, and it was very, very tempting 2 months after we bought it to go ahead and sell it again, because I would have made $6,000.
I know.
But I liked it. I liked the vehicle. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drive it. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider, is check those boxes off and make sure you're good. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, I don't know. I got everything I need. Matter of fact, I wish Eddie could find this. Mindfully Inspired. Yes, my website is KristinaSmallhorn.com with a Kristina, Smallhorn.com. And then there's, at the bottom of the website, it will say the book time with me, and then you'll see the referral or collaboration. Click on the referral form, and you fill that out right there, and you tell me exactly what you want, and I'll contact you. We'll talk, and we'll work something out if you need a real estate agent in your area. I'm always willing to help. But yeah, I have like these big giant rolls of toilet paper. The Charmin, have you seen these? They call them the super mega roll. It's this big around. They said it only lasted a month. That thing has lasted 3 months in my house. So either we are extremely frugal, or somebody around here has got a stinky butt. That's all I have
to say. Well, I do have a 12-year-old, and it's literally, trying to say, you don't need to use that much. Why is it this much smaller each time you come out of the bathroom? It's like, dude, come on.
Is he a boy?
You're a small guy. Yeah, you're a small guy.
And then he's the same one that probably you have to say, have you showered in the last 3 days? Is he the same one? Or
yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, that's just a boy thing. He'll grow out of it. One day when some girl goes, something stinks, he's going to be like, I think that's me. And then it's all going to hit him. And then all of a sudden he's going to want everything. And I always say teenage boys smell like goats.
Well, he stepped into middle school this year. So being cool and that acceptance value is very, very important to him now.
Yeah. What grade is he in?
He's in 7th.
Okay, yeah, it should be connecting now.
Yeah,
6th usually doesn't connect, but at 7th it starts connecting. By 8th he's full on Axe body spray.
There you go.
So this is it. This was a joke. I bought this for my husband because he spends so much time in the bathroom because he's watching TikToks, and I got him this toilet paper roll. Because it was just so funny to me. And then when I ordered it, I thought it was just one. It comes with 3, and that thing has lasted 3 months. 3 months. So if you guys are on the I need to save money because of inflation, go on their website and buy the Charmin Mega Roll.
Well, kudos for Charmin for jumping onto a social demand that really just presented itself in March of last year. So
if you really want to go the extra step, go get yourself a bidet that you can attach to your toilet. Then you really don't have to worry about toilet paper. The way that had to do with housing, I have no idea, but it totally went off the rails.
Hey, it's one of those accessories, right?
Yeah. Eddie, can you go ahead and throw another question up on the screen for me? It seems like some have come in. Eddie got distracted by the toilet paper too. It's his favorite from the house. You know, this is nothing but women in here, so you have to sympathize with my husband. He gets it all day long, so I think that's why he's in there. Question: is it laughable and concerning that Zillow failed with real estate during the hottest market? It's not questionable, and it is laughable, but it's not that questionable. They made a bad decision on who they hired to run the program that blew up in their face. They had the if you think of the Wizard of Oz and they pull back the curtain and there's the little man who's actually the wizard. It's kind of like one of those things that he let the zoo run the zoo, and it just didn't really work out in their benefit. I don't really think this is that big of a deal. I think that it makes for a great headline. It sells a lot of newspapers. It gets a lot of people to watch videos, but this isn't an alarming call to the real estate market that the housing market is crashing, in my opinion. What do you say, Chuck?
I go back to that conversation that we've had in our group, and they do have the data, right? They're seeing the trends. They see it probably before the average local agent is going to be able to see that. But they bought way too many houses they shouldn't have. They didn't have the fundamentals in place to make a wise investment. And they shot themselves in the foot, is really what it comes down to on that whole buying program, which is laughable from a standpoint that they already had the data that would make it that they could have used to make smarter decisions. So that to me is the laughable.
I just think that they just didn't hire the right people, and the housing market kept going up so exponentially throughout 2020. They were like, we have nothing to worry about. Yeah, we overpaid for it, but we'll get that money back in 3 months once this is fixed up and flipped over anyways. And then it caught up with them. And then they're like,
they could have paid some very, very smart investors to basically set that department up for them and say, here's how you do it.
Right.
And then they could have run it from there. But instead they chose computer algorithms over feet on the street and real experience.
Exactly. And I just think it was just poor planning. I don't think to me, it isn't that big of a, in my opinion, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. CC Moon says, don't forget that you have to get enough underwear and socks. This is true. I got plenty of those. I have to tell you, I mean, as bad as you may think Amazon is, Amazon has great underwear and socks. And they get you to the right way. Pam Gordon says, question, you always get an appraisal before you put your home on the market. It's been almost 30 years since we bought a home. Love your channel and your honesty. You are precious. Thank you, Pam. I think you're precious too, especially since I had a birthday. Every year that I make it alive, I'm like, damn, I'm good. So, no, you don't have to have an appraisal, but if you've lived in your house for 30 years and you really want a good concrete idea of what your house is worth, some people will get that appraisal ahead of time. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's for your own satisfaction. And especially if you have a lot of different offers coming in and somebody's saying, well, your house is only worth, $350. And you're like, no, honey, I got an appraisal. It's $375. This is hard numbers. Show me the money. So it's a better way to have concrete knowledge of what your house is worth if you were going to plan to do it ahead of time. You don't have to, but if you're concerned and you know that your real estate agent gave you some good information, but you really want that solid confirmation of what your house is worth, just go ahead and get it ahead of time. I mean, what do you say, Chuck?
I say, your best value is going to be having a relationship with a real estate agent that truly understands the market and what's happening. They will be able to show you exactly like type properties that have sold. If Zillow's looking 5 miles for their Zestimate, we're looking half a mile. And we're looking at measuring Cape Cods to Cape Cods within a very specific square footage and the amenities. And we're going to get really close, right? I've got friends that I grew up with that are also appraisers, and they're going through the same logical steps. They have a license, right? They have, professional responsibility, and they're doing it in that professional realm. But I can guarantee you that a real estate agent that truly understands the market and knows how to comp properties, maybe that
They're
has had
very
skin in
close.
the game and
Mhm.
has invested in properties themselves, they know
Mhm.
values and they know what people are willing to pay for them. And my wife and I, we get really, really close to the exact numbers. And I guess another point that kind of plays off of that, no, you don't need to get the appraisal because appraisers are now fully booked because there's a lot of people that are refinancing. And maybe that
Mhm.
refinancing boom has really kind of
It's
dwindled a
tapered off.
little bit,
Mhm.
but we're still having a difficult time getting available appraisers because there's roadblocks in getting that license. There's attrition in the appraisers. So there's fewer appraisers than there were years ago. And so getting on the schedule, I mean, we've had to extend closing dates because we're not getting appraisals in time. So that may be another issue. Timing is really important in the market, but you don't need to get it unless you want to be able to have that, here's the number, you're not fooling me, with the, oh, well, it's not worth that much on your offer. But it's also beneficial. You can basically take the approach of, here's the home inspection, here's the report, I don't need to fix anything, everything's good, and here's the value. Now let's talk. This is where I'm sitting. So you can take that position, but you don't have to.
Right, but have you seen that they're bringing back desktop appraisals? Did you see that they're going to bring those back?
I did not see that.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
they're bringing them back. Not in all cases, but they're going to start bringing back desktop appraisals.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah,
they also have algorithms in there where maybe where you don't need an appraisal based on the type of loan that you have as well. And we deal
exactly.
with that, but it's a roll of the dice. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah. Uh, I'm going to say this. Ekan car? Is that right? What would you say? Can you see that? Chuck, what do you think it is? ECKAN. Ekan
Canker.
car?
Yeah.
Whatever. I tried. I'm sorry if I did your name dirty. I tried. Question: with more states voting on rent control, with landlords limited control over their own property, will be selling off their rental units to potential homeowners. No. Nope. Nope, not happening. Those rent controls have been an issue since the 70s. This has been around forever. These are in major cities. Investors are not going to lose their property because of rent control. They're just not going to, because they probably bought that thing 1,000 years ago. No, nope, not going anywhere. What do you say, Chuck?
I'd say you really need to look. So an investor's really going to look at depreciation and they're going to look at the
Mhm,
timeline. So maybe the asset has expired,
mhm,
for them based on their tax strategy. But
mhm,
again, they're going to have their advisors and they're going to look at it. Real estate to me is a math equation. A
mhm.
lot of people get caught up in the emotions and the colors of the sticks and the bricks and everything that it is, but real estate is absolutely a math equation and investors are looking at it that way. They and if somebody's going to reach in and try and grab money out of their pocket, they will stand and fight.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So rather than just say, well, okay, I give up, let me just sell, that's not something that I would see a very sophisticated investor taking
I
action
can't
on.
I
Mm-mm.
don't see any investors selling unless they know that they can put it in somewhere else. Like I had somebody that sold some assets in Austin, Texas. So why'd you sell it in Austin, Texas? He's like, because I'm gonna put it in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm like, Kansas City, Missouri. He's like, just trust me on this. The return
Mm-hmm.
on this is gonna be so much better. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, have at it. But bought $4 million worth of investments. I'm like, wow.
Well, especially if they can exchange it. If they can
Yeah,
exchange it and they can have that many more units and their
exactly.
positive cash flow across that many more units can outweigh and they're selling at the top of the market. I mean, that's a recipe for
Success.
really moving towards, appreciating markets.
Yep. Karen Gee says, I'm 2 years into my 5-year fixed rate mortgage. Should I renegotiate how now to lock in at a lower rate or just wait it out? You're going to have to see how much. All right. So whenever you do a refi, you're going to have to do you have to do an appraisal. There is some closing costs. Find out if all those things are going to add up to reduce your interest rate. like see how that all pans out. You can talk to either a financial advisor or talk to a couple mortgage brokers. Of course, their job is to sell you a mortgage, but they still have to write this all out on paper. So compare those papers, talk to 1, 2, 3 different lenders and line up their papers and see how much money you would actually be saving in the long run. And that would be my advice. What do you say, Chuck?
I say that the future of interest rates is highly unknown, especially based on, I mean, the House just passed the infrastructure bill, right? So we're talking about spending a ton of money, and inflation being what it is based on decisions that have been made. And I think that there's a significant opportunity for interest rates to go up. And if you have the possibility to lock in at a lower rate, talk to an advisor that's going to really play out that scenario at a detailed level and give you the alternatives and compare whether or not it makes sense. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do anticipate interest rates will go back up.
I do.
There you go.
And my crystal ball is telling me if it's only a point difference in your interest rates, don't even bother. I mean, like weigh that out. I mean, do you really want to lose the 5 years that you've just paid down to like pay a difference of 1 point? Don't do that.
No, you really have to run the calculation out for the longer term.
That's absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have another question, Eddie, that we want to put on the screen? Ta, ta, ta. He's pulling it up. Eddie is the master producer. If anybody doesn't know, Eddie is my husband, and he is the one that produces and pulls up the questions. So make sure you tell everybody thank you for being so patient with all of us so you can get the questions on the screen. Also, everybody, if you haven't noticed, I got new internet, and look, doesn't this look a lot clearer? I'm so happy. I'm so happy I got new internet. Jay Stratton says, question, would the buyers or the realtors know that there has been a recent appraisal? Ooh, I want to tell you something really cool. And then, Chuck, you can put in your 2 cents afterwards. So if you got yourself a house and it was appraised under an FHA appraisal, right? So the buyer comes through, he's going to get the loan. He puts in a $230,000 offer on the house. He gets the FHA appraiser to come out. The appraiser says it's only worth $220. Then the buyer's like, well, I don't want to buy it. Well, the seller has to be told it appraised for this. So the next person that comes along and if they have a FHA loan, that appraisal that was done with that house stays with that house for 6 months. It isn't going anywhere. It stays. And but that isn't true. Now, I got in an argument with somebody, but that isn't true with the VA, right? So a VA appraisal, that goes with the actual person that bought it. That goes with the person that's purchasing the house. That doesn't stay with the house at all, but the FHA does. I got in an argument with somebody about that. I'm like, no, I don't think that's true. He's like, yeah, it is. It's true. I was right. I was right. Because I went and confirmed it after the live stream. I was like, I was more than sure I was right about that. But sometimes I let myself get bullied.
Yeah.
What do you say, Chuck?
Well, in the scenario that we were just talking about, I wouldn't be considering, we don't have a database of appraisals, outside of that FHA scenario that you just described. There's nothing there that says, hey, this house was appraised. So we don't have, there's no checkbox that could say, I mean, we can see in the MLS if a house was listed previously, and if it was withdrawn, we could maybe, reach out to somebody, but it would have to be a request. I mean, there's no way that we would know.
And there's nothing in our in most states that property disclosures and anything that the sellers have to disclose it, that are appraised for less money than what is on the market. They don't have to disclose that. There's nothing that states that they have to disclose that. Even if another buyer rejected it because it didn't appraise, there's nothing that states that we have to say that at all.
Nope.
Not in Louisiana. I don't know if it's changed anywhere else. Hannah says, because of rising rates, if it were you, would you try to purchase a new house now or wait until 2022, assuming personal finances are the same now than in a few months? What do you think? And in a few months. What do you think, Chuck?
I would be working towards locking in whatever you can at this point in time. Now, do I think that I don't foresee that house prices are going down. I don't see that the market is going to be crashing anytime soon.
Me either.
That's supply and demand. There's too much demand out there, and we have such a shortage of housing right now, for prices to drop. Now, do I expect them to continue appreciate or rising as fast as they were? No, I think that curve is starting to flatten a bit, but they're still appreciating, right? It's just appreciating at a slower rate. So from that standpoint and from that perspective, locking in and combining it with interest rates going up, the sooner is better to me, and that's the camp I'm in.
Yeah, they in some areas they had gone up like 25% in some markets. It was ridiculous. But they're now at 16%. They're still going up. They're still going up in some of the hottest markets. 16% is nothing. Some of them are 9%, some of them are 6%, some of them are 3%, but they're not going down. They're just not as going up as quickly as it did before.
Right.
So I don't know. If you have the ability to buy a house, and I caution you, if you're buying a brand new house, please have it inspected every chance you can throughout the building process. Please do that for your own benefit. I'm not saying that all builders are doing it, but it's been commonly documented that a lot of builders, I'm not saying everyone, but builders have been cutting corners because they haven't been able to get the supplies that they need to build these houses. So they've been doing some stuff to try to get the house built and built on time. Have that house inspected every step of the way, so that way you're getting a quality product, and that when you move in, the house isn't going to fall apart on you in 3 years. Make sure you do that every step of the way that you're building a brand new house. That's my advice. Yep. All right. A question. The inspection on my home is Thursday. Any tips to keep in mind? What would you give somebody as far as tips during the inspection period, Chuck?
If you have the ability to go to the inspection and spend a couple hours with the inspector and ask questions. If something doesn't look right to you, ask the inspector. There is no stupid question when you're there with an inspector, because it is going to be your house. Okay. The inspector that we work with on a lot of transactions, he is very, very thorough. So it's also important to have a conversation with the inspector before you go to the house, to understand what's their style, what's their approach. And, if rather than just take your realtor's referral for that, definitely, it's next Thursday. You already have the guy or gal scheduled to go out and perform that inspection, but ask the questions. If something looks weird and you don't understand what they told you, don't just nod your head and say, okay, but have no clue what they're saying. Can ask them to please elaborate. You don't understand what he just said. So that's important. Don't worry about how long it takes. It's going to be your house. Make sure that you understand what it is that they're looking at, so you can see it and have that perspective too.
I was going to say to go there, but also know that if it's an existing home, when you're going to make a repair request, make sure it's things that have to do with the function of the house. Anything aesthetically like paint, that kind of stuff is kind of minor. You really want a high functioning home. So if it's anything like, there's an electrical problem, absolutely. If there's a problem with the HVAC system, absolutely. If there's a leak in the roof, or there's lint in the dryer that could literally cause a fire at any moment, yes, absolutely, get those things fixed. But if there's chip paint on the outside and there's a wobbly fascia and there needs to be a couple little nails and some siding, that's nothing. Don't put that petty stuff on there. Get the things that are super expensive, that has to do with the function of your home. Get those things repaired. Don't worry about the silly things. What I call silly things that you could do, the weekend warrior stuff that you can easily do yourself. Do that. Don't have the sellers do that. Have them do the expense stuff.
Well, if you do have some loose pieces of siding, sometimes there are some, for repair requests there, it can be an approach to put some throwaway items on, so that way you do get the important ones agreed to.
There's like some the wobbly approaches, toilet.
Yeah, there's some approaches.
Yeah, you got to anchor the toilet.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah, that's a really common one. So if you ever see that, they're like, it looks like the gasket is loose on the toilet, and there is a toilet. The toilet is not anchored down properly. It makes it like when you read it, you're like, oh my gosh, is this toilet going to blow off the wall? No, it's not. It's pretty
Right.
common. They just have to screw it down, or maybe the wax seal isn't right. It's not a big deal. But what he's saying is that it is an approach. You can throw in the big items, and then you can put down the little items. The thing is that what you have a jeopardy of, like, we were going to fix the 6 items that that you wanted, but we can't afford to fix this one thing. And you're like, those things I could get done in a weekend. And then the seller's like, we're working with you. We're working with you. We're willing to fix those 6 things. And I'm like, but the $10,000 roof repair needs to be done more than those other 6 things,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's all, the real estate is one of those things. You gotta feel it out. You can see how you're working with another agent.
Well, the approach that we take is really to put them in priority order.
Right.
So these are the top ones, and then you get to the bottom of the list, and those are the little ones, the annoyance ones.
The wobbly toilet.
Yeah.
Jay Stratton says, as a seller, are inspections and appraisals private to the seller as long as the seller divulges any problems? Here's the thing. If the inspection uncovers something that was given to you by the buyers, and it uncovers things like, that there's a problem, there's roots growing in the plumbing system. Now that there's a leak in the roof. Now that there is enough lint in that dryer flume to cause a fire at any moment if someone was to dry a towel in your clothes dryer. Those things have to be. Even you're the selling real estate agent, if the sellers won't divulge it and they won't put it on the property disclosure, the sales agent will put it in the realtor notes, because they're not going to be responsible, because the sellers had knowledge that there is these problems with the house, but they don't have to put the full report that was given to them by the buyer. No, but they have to tell them that there is an issue, and they know about it because they now have the report that was given to them. Is that how it works in your state too, Chuck?
Absolutely. If you're aware of it and you don't disclose as the seller, then that can absolutely be a problem. Yeah,
it may be a problem to the realtor too, right? Mm-hmm. In your area too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I know about it, then I can't lie to another buyer agent. Right. Absolutely. It's not only law, but it's also ethics. That's what we're bound to as realtors. So it's super important. Disclosure is one of the biggest things.
If the sellers won't disclose it, here, like, we put it in the real estate notes, like, this happened, this was inspection happened here, there is a $10,000 roof damage. You can have that estimated with another company. This is who gave the estimate for that repair. Yep. Like, if they're not willing to fill it out, we have to put it in our notes. I'm not gonna lose my license over something like that. That's ridiculous. Debbie Brandy says, your dreams coach says, what do you think they will start raising mortgage rates again now that the economy is starting to recover? What's your opinion, Chuck? Do you want me to pull up the crystal ball?
Yeah, I think, well, they've already said that it's not, the Fed has already come out and said it's not going to happen in 2021. So what we talked about earlier about it being January of 2022, I think it's very realistic. They know that they need to, and I'm surprised that they haven't already. So it's coming sooner than later. If it's going to be 2022, I'd be watching for it. Counting the weeks, it's going to be in the single digits for sure. The single digit week numbers of 2022.
If someone's trying to drum up business in my comment section, like, go make your own YouTube channel, please. Like, don't put your email address in my comment section so you can drum up business. Like, really? Stop. Don't do that. I would never do that on your social media site. So don't do it on mine. Question. Do you ever recommend that financially stressed people sell up and move to a very cheap remote area in order to survive rather than become homeless locally? Do you recommend that financially stressed people sell up and move to a very cheap remote area in order to survive rather than becoming homeless locally? Okay, this is a real thing. So my husband and I lived in Florida. Our house had increased exponentially. We were like, the thing is like, I don't think this is going to hold up, but we can move somewhere that was a lot less expensive, which we did. We could buy a much nicer house, which we did. And then we actually had a better opportunity to grow as humans, to tell you the truth, there was more opportunities here. So absolutely, that's my opinion. You could totally do that. Think about all the people that live in California that have made, like, they live in a little tiny house. I mean, it's just like literally 400 square feet, and it's like on top of one another, and they're selling it for $1.3 million. Then they move to this remote town in Texas, and they buy that house for like 250,000 or 350,000, and it's twice the size of what they had, or triple the size they had before. I have to show everybody this. I got a cat. I've never had a cat before. Look, I have a cat.
It's a cutie.
Yeah, his name is Marcel. I've never had a cat, and I'm so excited that he came over here. I've been hoping that he would come on to this on there. He's cool. I like him a lot. His name is Marcel.
So on that same point, I would absolutely, there is no reason to dig your financial grave by being house poor, right? If it makes absolute financial sense in whatever your particular situation is, to sell and be able to afford a standard of living, a roof is better than not having a roof, right?
Yep.
So if we're talking about that specific question, where'd you go, Kristina?
I'm here.
You've got the shield of Marcel.
Well, at least his butthole isn't showing. If that was showing,
Yeah.
I would be moving the camera. I lose my monetization because of the cat.
But absolutely, even on your point in Florida, I mean, Florida and Arizona and California and Vegas, they're the most volatile. They're going to have the highest peaks and the sharpest declines, right?
Absolutely.
So they're going to be the most volatile markets. I mean, in Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh's pretty much just chugging right along, right? It's very, very even and flat. So depending on the market, I think we're getting to that point where even though prices are continuing to appreciate, you'll start to see the flood of listings onto the market when people believe that they have reached the top. And I don't think we're going to reach that top until we start to see interest rates change. And then we see buyers that have affordability that they have now at lower interest rates, they're going to jump back and they're going to step out and say, tag, I'm out. I can't afford what it is that I want anymore because my loan has now priced me out of the market. But being house poor is no fun.
No. That was very entertaining about my cat, though. I was totally distracted. I'm not gonna lie. Hannah says, "Is it okay to shop realtors in the very beginning of the process?" That's a demand. Like, I demand you, Hannah. I demand that is your due diligence. I say not one, not two, not three, maybe even 4 different real estate agents. And if you don't like any of them, I assure you, I promise you with every fiber of my being, there's more out there that you can interview. And if you don't like somebody, even if I recommended you somebody and you didn't like that person, contact me again and say, I didn't like that person. I didn't gel with them. I wasn't gelling like Magellan. And I'm like, okay, well, I want you gelling. I will find you somebody else in that area. So that way you are happy. Like, there's no way you're stuck with anybody. And just because that was the first person you called, you doesn't mean you have to work with them. Because there's some people we all know. There's some people that are just weenies. I don't want you working with a weenie. You must interview as many people as possible.
Yep.
Right, Chuck? No weenies.
No weenies. And it's really important, just because you are going to be, you're taking that part of your life and you're walking on a path together to get to where you want to go. And having that person next to you that you're comfortable with, that you trust, and you call it gel with, but you click with, you have, you have a way of, they work with your communication, they give you the data in the way that you want to see it, and you click. That's so important. And there's plenty of agents out there that you can find that have the knowledge, the skill, and will have the right relationship with you to help you get.
Chuck, do you don't remember that commercial? Are you gelling? I'm
Yep.
gelling. I'm gelling like Magellan.
Yep. That was Dr. Scholl's, right?
Yeah, it was Dr. Scholl's. But when people ask me how you doing, I'm like, I'm chilling like a villain on penicillin. It's just so stupid. Andy Royale says, is there a reason for the increase in loan amount for FHA VA conventional because of the rates? Do you think is there a reason for the increase in loan amount for FHA, VA, and conventional rates because of rates? I'm not a lender. I didn't know there was an increase of the debt to income ratio. I know that they changed some things about if you had a person on your loan that had a pretty terrible credit report, and you like some people were like, oh, I can't put them on the loan because they have a terrible credit report. And then they decided to average those out so they both could be on there, but I didn't know they increased the loan amount. Did you know anything about that, Chuck?
No, I defer. I have a really strong lender that we work with on a very consistent basis. And, we recommend our clients to speak with him and two others. And we have a really strong relationship with multiple lenders. And I know that they're going to lead people to the right place for them and going to evaluate their situation. And so I rely heavily on them. I understand some of them, but I don't understand the details of the loans. I'm understand the details of houses.
Right. Question: what red flags should you look for an attic inspection? Here in Louisiana, I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania, but here in Louisiana, the first thing you do in the attic, right? First, check those stairs. Wobbly, wobbly, wobbly. I'm not an inspector. These are just one of those things that when your inspector is doing, that's what he's doing. He will check, make sure those stairs aren't wobbly. Then he goes up the stairs. First thing we do is look straight up in the air because we want to see if there's black spots, because shockingly enough, we get a lot of rain here and we have occasional flood, and we have a few hurricanes that come through here and there. So these things are big, giant red flags. If you see these black spots on the roof line, and those are places most likely that the roof is leaking, and the inspector can identify if that's an old roof leak that has been repaired, or if it needs to have attention. They can tell. They know, like I can't tell. I'm like, there's a dark spot. They're like, oh, that's an old one. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. Oh, that's already been repaired. I can tell. I'm like, good thing you're the inspector, because I just said a dark spot and that made me red flag, but it wasn't. Yeah. What is it in Pennsylvania? What is the red flag in the attic?
So whenever I'm going through a house that I know needs a bunch of work, right, and I'm going through and I'm identifying a scope of work for what renovations that we need to do, I'm looking up. I want to look for wet spots or holes or bows in the plywood that might be up there. I can't measure the thickness of the plywood to see, did they use 1/2 inch or did they use 3/4. But if you start to see plywood that's starting to bow and flake, that's an easy indicator. The next thing for us being in the mid-Atlantic, and probably it's very important in hotter climates too, is the thickness of the insulation. If you can see the thickness of the insulation, we have houses from the 50s and 60s here. The insulation standards back then were significantly different, right? You have old wood single pane windows, and you've only got maybe 2 inches of old insulation that doesn't perform as well. That's going to moderate the environment inside the house, whether keeping it cool or keeping it warm. In the winter, that's one of the most important things. So insulation and checking for water are two of the key things. The other thing that's gonna show up is, are there electrical connections from DIY cowboys that have come through and done some electrical work? And if you see just the wire nuts and things out there, that's something to also be aware of. But
those
in the attic,
your inspectors will point those things. The inspector will find anything wiring stuff. But I love that DIY cowboys. I was stealing that, Chuck. I like that. I never heard that before. Justice only. Ask the cat about whether the housing will come back to the pre-corona prices in 2 years. The cat took off. The cat. I don't know if you know this about cats.
Marcel has left the studio.
Yeah, cats, you can't make a cat love you. The cat has to decide that he's going to love you. And that cat, I've never had a cat. I walked up to this cat in the store and I said, hey, cat, do you want to come home with us? If you do, put your paw in my hand. And he put his whole head in my hand and left it there. And he was purring. I went, oh my God, we're getting a cat. We're getting a cat. And so that was it. I got a cat. I've never had a cat before. I love this cat too. He's awesome. Joe, what cities or areas? Joe says, what cities or areas of the country have a healthy market in that area? Honestly, I wish I knew every single real estate market under the sun. I just know that a lot of my investors have recently bought homes outside of Atlanta and outside Kansas City, Missouri. Why they chose those, it has to do with numbers. I was not privy into that, but some of them sold their places out here and throughout Texas and bought in those two areas. What do you have to say, Chuck?
Yeah, I think, you want to, that can be a long video and just a single topic to go all the way through it. But
Chuck, you should make a video.
Definitely from an investment perspective, looking into the Midwest and where you don't have the high fluctuations, right? So yeah, there's guys that play the risky appreciation game and they're looking for the quick in and out. I mean, go back to 2003 to 2005 and you see the mass influx of, into Florida, and there's people that really ruin their financial future by getting into deals and getting caught with inventory because there were hairdressers that were based. I just bought a house, because they were able to get the loan.
Chuck, I was a hairdresser that bought a house. You just shut your mouth right there. I was a hairdresser that bought a house in Florida.
I use that from one. There's no dig on hairdressers, but there were. Let me retract that and say there were people that had no business in buying a house to flip it. They could get the loans at that point in time. So look for the stable markets is really where you don't have the high peaks and the low valleys. So I think Eddie's about ready to boot me off the live stream here in just a second.
Let me tell you what, Eddie was thankful that I was a hairdresser because I kept our family afloat with that hairdressing job.
Yep.
That was my early years of being married. I was a hairdresser.
Yep.
But I'm like, Chuck is never coming on this stream ever again. He gets insulted. Everybody really end up liking Chuck now. Let me show his channel. Let's show Chuck's channel because he may never come back again. Chuck has a YouTube channel, and Eddie's gonna show it on the screen. Eddie's having a hard time finding it. Hold on. I think he pulled it up earlier. He probably lost it. I got it. She says she got her offer accepted. I'm scared now. Don't be scared. That you won half the battle right there, getting your offer accepted. Look, there he is, matching Lancaster, and he knows all about that town. He has another friend that lives out there. Colin. What's Colin's last name?
Colin Cameron. Yeah, he's down here in South Central PA, and so we're located in the heart of Amish country, about 70 miles west of Philadelphia. And I work together with my wife, and we help people match to all things Lancaster. We do a lot of business networking as well. So we have a huge network of local people that are rock stars in what they do. So we're able to connect you to all things that you want. We help you start your new lifestyle starting at home here in Lancaster.
I have to show you something, Chuck. You're going to love this. I ripped out my earpiece just to show you this because it's so funny. Years ago, I had a bit. It was a funny bit. And I was, I would talk like this the whole entire time. And I was always yelling at the guy who was my husband, and his name was Chuck. And my subscribers at the time loved it because I would always be like, Chuck, why are you looking at this? Chuck. And I have these stickers because Eddie played Chuck. So all you saw was the back of Chuck's head. And I'd be like, Chuck, are you listening to me, Chuck? So I'm going to send you a couple of these because that's the back of my husband's head. Nobody knows what my husband, like some people were like, what does your husband look like? Because you didn't see him.
That's hilarious.
These are real stickers. These are real stickers. Yep. They're old. Nobody because they don't understand the joke, but I have a few of these left. If you want one, let me know. PR says question. I had a new realtor wanted me to sign a contract before even meeting her. No way. No. No. No, I understand that there's some real estate agents are like, look, my time is precious. If you're not willing to sign this and work with me, then you know what? I don't need your business. But there's something about meeting somebody in person before you could easily say to them, look, I understand you're trying to protect yourself and you don't want your time wasted, but I'm trying to protect myself as well. I'm not going to sign anything until we've met in person. Then I know that we can gel like Magellan. And if we're not going to do that and you're not willing to do that, I'm probably not the client for you. And then move on.
Yep,
Don't
absolutely.
Don't forget to hit the like button, and just everybody get a good picture of Chuck, because he said something about hairdressers, and I don't know if he's ever going to be back.
Oh my goodness. I heard, and I literally was regurgitating a story I heard, and that was somebody else used that example. So I pulled it right out of my memory, and yep. So
Bad.
I guess I need to go. I'm going to be canceled by all the hairdressers out there. I won't have any.
That's
won't
it.
have any business from hairdressers.
That's it. We're canceling Chuck.
Yep.
Chuck, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the stream. Before we leave, I want everybody to know, if you are looking for a referral in your area, you're more than welcome to visit my website, KristinaSmallhorn.com. Just click on book a call with me and referral and fill that out. I will get that email. Most likely I'll be answering those on Tuesday. And if you have any other questions in the meantime on this video, go ahead and put them in the comment section once this video is published. My dog's coughing. And I want to say thank you to Chuck. Everybody say thank you to Chuck and hit that like button on the way out. Chuck, you got to dance now. Everybody die. I hope you have a great weekend. We're dancing our way out. Ta-da. That's